What is up, guys? We've got a big discussion that we are doing today on stream, and if you're watching this on YouTube, shout outs to you. We have had the Series 9 rule set announced way earlier than they usually do. It's going to start May 1st, so the rules aren't going to be changing super quick. But they pretty much announced that it's going to be Series 7 again, the exact same rule set of the national decks, everything is allowed, and this has stirred up a lot of controversy and negative feelings in the community. So today we've got a big discussion stream talking all about it, why it's bad for new players, why it's not very good for the community, and some ways that we can fix it. So first off, guys, here is the tweet from Cerebi.net saying that the Series 9 rule set has been announced, returns to Series 7 rule set, and no longer permits restricted legendary Pokemon. So we're going to have our fun with the restricted legendary Pokemon. The Players Cup 3 in its entirety for the rest of the tournament is going to be with the legendary Pokemon. So the format is not magically changing overnight, but we still have a lot to talk about how this has been affecting the Pokemon community as a whole for a long time, and how I'm going to talk about why I think it's a pretty negative thing overall. And yeah, so let's get into it, guys. You know your boy's been working hard when this is the first slide you see, baby. What is a rotating VGC format? It is when the format changes the rules, what Pokemon are allowed, what items are allowed, etc. when they change within 3 months, 4 months, 2 months has even happened sometimes. That is when the format rotates. So we've got chapter 1. Why is it happening? Why are these formats rotating in the first place? Why have they decided to do the rules like this? And then chapter 2, we've got why it is bad for players and the community as a whole. That is going to be chapter 2. And then chapter 3 is some proposed fixes and kind of a conclusion as to why this is happening, and hopefully some changes that they can make it better. There you go. All right, there's Papa Franku in the flesh. Why are the rotating formats happening? I think that this is the first thing that we need to address when we are going to be talking about this big discussion. Now, IRL events are canceled, obviously due to the pandemic. All we have is online presence. We only have online tournaments, the online ladder. That is it. That is the entire presence of the competitive VGC community. So the online community and scene needs something to keep players engaged. That is why they have these rotating formats. Now, here's the big thing, is they think that rotating these formats and changing how we play is going to keep the game very fresh and new. It's going to keep, like I said, it's going to keep the player base engaged, wanting to always strive for something new or try out new teams and all that good stuff. And then it's also a very band-aid fix for format diversity. Now, what do I mean by that? Unfortunately, TPCI likes to fix things in a way that takes the very least amount of effort possible. I think that this has to do with Nintendo and Game Freak, how much they like to allow actual changes to the video game in forms of patches and balance changes. We don't see things like balance changes in Pokemon. We even rarely see bug fixes for bugs that literally change the aspect of competitive battles and stuff like that. So they are very, very, very strict and stingy about how they will actually change the game. Examples of this were in VGC 2019, the first series, Sun series. You just couldn't bring Rayquaza, or your Rayquaza couldn't learn Dragon Ascent because the Megas weren't allowed. If Rayquaza had the move Dragon Ascent, it could Mega Evolve, and they just could not remove the Mega Evolution feature from a certain battle. They just were like, okay, well, we can't fix it, so Rayquaza just cannot have Dragon Ascent. So that's what I mean by it is a very easy to do fix on a format that they can implement. Just these Pokemon aren't allowed. It's a rule set. Very easy for them to do. And then another thing is that these rotating series are great for casual battlers, and that is pretty much the largest population of Pokemon players there is. You know, we as competitive VGC players are a very, very, very small fraction of the percent of people who play the video game Pokemon. We've got shiny hunters, people who want to catch them all, people who just like to nuzlocke the game, speedrunners, all this kind of stuff. Kids just playing for fun, nothing but fun. Competitive is a very, very small percentage of the player base, and I think that casual players love these formats where they can just hop on the free battle ladder or hop on the ranked battle ladder just for like a few games, even just like a few games every month. It's just like, oh wow, the rules are changed, I can use some new Pokemon, and then they throw in some new Pokemon for their like in-game team. They just throw in a legendary or two, they try it out, they just have some fun. And yeah, that's about it. It's just very easy for them, a bigger player base, to just play the game in a different way. So I think that these are the biggest reasons why these format changes are happening. So you have to understand that it is very easy for them to do this, and they think that they are keeping players engaged by doing this, but we're going to soon learn that this is not the case, and I hope that I can explain it to you guys in a clear and concise way as to why this is not a good thing for us. Time to move into the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this discussion. Why is it bad for players? Now, I break down each one of these things in a separate slide, but let's go over them right now. I believe that rotating formats provide an unrealistic standard of format change for when live events come back. Once again, I'm going to be going over this into even more detail. And then a really big one is metas are unable to fully develop or reach a late development cycle. This is the most obvious complaint that people say, oh, the meta hasn't, adapted, but we're going to get into that yet again. I think there are some big misconceptions about this. And then also, I think it leaves players unmotivated and at a loss when their goals and progress are cut short. People are finally starting to hit their stride in Series 8. They finally found a team that they like. They finally found a legendary that they like, that they think that they can beat everybody with. And then it is over. It's gone. People don't just magically become gods at the new format in like a week or a few days. It takes time. You guys are going to see it takes a lot of time to achieve your goals and like for metas to develop. And let's get into it right now. Unrealistic standard of format changes. Now, VGC, since its inception, has been the exact same format from start to finish for one full year. VGC 2014 was the Kalos Dex from August 2014 to August 2015. Okay, 2016 was the same format, restricted 2 legendaries in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Anyway, it is a full year of meta development. And what I mean by this is an unrealistic standard is Sword and Shield has had the biggest growth of new players coming into the game that we have ever seen. It could be because it's on the Switch. It's no longer a handheld console. It is a home console that you can play on your TV. That is a much bigger demographic of gamers. Legitimately, just more gamers play on console than on handheld. And it happened during the unfortunate pandemic. More people are playing games, more people are watching Twitch, more people are watching YouTube. And I think that it was the first big 3D Pokemon game as well on console. So it was just a perfect storm to attract a bunch of people to Pokemon. And here's the thing, all these new players are so conditioned for formats that change every 2 months, every 3 months. Players are just like, oh, I don't like Series 6, so it's all good. Series 7's coming soon. Don't worry about it. Or they really like Series 5, and they are really good at Series 5, and then it just changes, and they're like, wow, this sucks, like, blah, 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 blah. What is going to happen is when real-life events come back, when the world is totally back to normal, we're going to most likely have the same format for an entire year. And then all of these new Pokemon players are going to be like, what the heck? Why are we playing the same format for an entire year? This could turn off a lot of new players that were literally conditioned to have a format change every 2 months. As I have here, VGC 2019 was the only exception that this has not happened before. Sun Series, Moon Series, and Ultra Series. Those each lasted 4 months. And even players to an extent thought that that wasn't long enough for a meta to develop. And it wasn't. I think it's impossible for a meta to develop over 4 months. But think about that. Sun, Moon, and Ultra series were each longer than the longest series we've had in Sword and Shield. Now, 2019 was the latest year before Sword and Shield. So perhaps they are going to implement some kind of Sun, Moon, Ultra system when the formats come back. It could be like Sword, Shield, and Champion series or something like that, right? That is a possibility, but to be honest, I don't really see that happening for an entire year. Maybe certain years with legendaries, that could have been why. VGC 2019 had legendaries in it, so maybe that's why they cut it up into all these different series, but I don't really see that happening completely. I think that with the rotating formats, new players are unable to see that metas do in fact evolve very drastically over time, over the course of an entire year. That may sound crazy to you guys. And I've even got some funny slides in here that show that people are somewhat ignorant about meta development. But let's get to the second point. Metagames have a very organic way of staying fresh through natural meta progression. Once again, I've got another slide on this, and we are going to deep dive into that even more. And then another thing about metas staying constant for an entire year is players feel validated and rewarded by constantly evolving throughout a year-long metagame. Something's popular at the beginning, we're going to start countering that. And it's like, yes, I successfully countered that before the regional. And then that team that you just countered everything with, well, that's like the new meta. And then people have to beat that. It constantly evolves over time. And it's very, very cool to watch, to feel, and experience. Please take this with a grain of salt. This was a comment on one of my YouTube videos from a while ago. And I mean, YouTube comment section, we all know how great the YouTube comment section is, but this was a comment from a guy. The problem, this was talking about Series 7, VGC Series 7. The problem is Wolfie's team has already solved the meta. It's honestly the best team for Series 7. There's nothing it can't handle. The meta had been out for 2 months at this point, 3 months maximum. This guy is saying that Wolf's team is perfect. No, it's already perfect. It defeats literally everything in the entire metagame. The meta is solved in 3 months. This is so absurdly wrong, okay? There are teams that just whip Colossal's booty. Wolf is one of the best players of all time. Of course he's going to beat lots of players using one team. There is no way there is one team that could just answer everything in the entire meta. That's just not how it works. And this is, I would assume, a newer player who already has the unfortunate mentality that metas are solved. Oh, 2-month format, boom, meta solved, done. Let's move to the next one. Meta's over. There's nothing more to see here. The meta is solved. I think it was, I can't remember who Wolf played in the semifinals. It was losers bracket semifinals. Dude, that guy literally lost off of a first turn wake from Wolf and a hard 50-50 read. It's what the how did that guy beat Wolf's team? He got hacks. If that guy was so close to beating Wolf's team, he must have hacked Wolf so hard. I mean, thank God Wolf got that first turn wake up and his opponent missed a 50-50 read, because that was the only way Wolf could lose, is if he got baxed, right? It's no, that guy's team was perfectly capable of beating Wolf's team, and he was a great player. So it's yeah, it's with this mentality, it is everybody should use this team, and if they lose, it's because they got hacked. Legit. How could you lose if you're using the perfect team? Now we are going to dive into a rough kind of timeline of a meta development of VGC 2016. I have played since VGC 2014. That was my favorite meta. I even thought about doing this for VGC 2014, but I thought 2016 was very easy to understand how the meta evolved, especially with this little diagram that I made pretty much. So first off, At the beginning of VGC 2016, the early meta dominator was what everyone deemed Big Six, okay? It was Groudon Xerneas as your restricted duo. In 2016, you were allowed 2 restricted legendaries on your team, along with Smeargle with Dark Void and Follow Me, Tailwind Talonflame, Tailwind Intimidate Salamence, and then Mega Kangaskhan for faking stuff out and all that kinds of stuff. It was all about setting up Xerneas, killing Xerneas' weaknesses with Groudon. And this was a team at the beginning of the meta that just dominated everything. I believe it won the first 3 regionals, or at least had a massive presence on the competitive scene for the first like 3 regionals of the whole season. And of course, everybody's thinking this team is destroying everything. How are we going to beat it? Right now, in this day and age, people would be like, oh, meta solved. Big Six is the best team. There's nothing better than it. Okay, meta's over. Move to the next one. And it's just like, holy God, is that wrong? So, the first big early counter team to Groudon Xerneas was 2 legendaries that match up quite well right into them, was Kyogre and Dialga. And then you would have Mega Gengar to prevent switching. You'd trap the Groudon in. You'd switch the Kyogre in. The Groudon could not switch out with the rain up, and then Kyogre just murders it. You would have Crobat with things like Tailwind, Haze, Taunt, all these things to shut down Smeargle, shut down Xerneas, stop the Tailwinds from the other team, all this kind of stuff. This was the early counter team that started to develop about, I would say, 2 to 3 months into the format, and it had a very large presence at some of the regionals in that time. It did stop Big Six from winning a few regionals in a lot of instances, but it wasn't a very well fleshed out team. And I would say then a month or 2 after that, so we're already 5 months into a format, people really started to polish their Ray Ogre teams. They dropped Dialga in favor of Rayquaza, which is, I would argue, a better partner for Kyogre. It allows you to get rid of the Primordial Sun, the Desolate Land. You can just get rid of it completely, switch in Rayquaza, and kill Groudon. It's very simple, but backed with things like Crobat to stop the Xerneas Smeargle. You had Bronzong, which if you look at Bronzong right now and you compare it to Big Six, Bronzong has an amazing matchup against every single one of those Pokemon. Kangaskhan cannot touch Bronzong. Salamence cannot touch Bronzong. Talonflame, maybe were running fire moves back then. Sometimes they weren't, and even if they were, it's a very weak Pokemon. Bronzong's huge. Smeargle couldn't really touch Bronzong. They just ran Lumberry, got up Trick Room in front of the Dark Void, done. Xerneas can't touch Bronzong. All this kind of stuff. So the meta started to develop to Ray Ogre. These good Ray Ogre teams started crushing the Big Six squad. And Ray Ogre had this big stint of being a very, very strong team comp that countered that. And look how many months that took to successfully make a great counter team to Big Six. It took about, I would say, 3 to 4 months is where Ray Ogre really started picking up. And then right about this time, people actually started using dual primals team. It kind of seemed like a weird team composition. Why would I have both Kyogre and Groudon on my team? Like, their weathers conflict with each other, with one another. Really weird. Why would I do that? Well, they were both just absurdly strong Pokemon. They had amazing base stats, amazing abilities, and dual primals started picking up huge. Dual primals with the double steals of Mawile Bronzong could definitely deal with Big Six, the Groudon Xerneas team. They could really deal with that. And then the Ray Ogre teams. Ray Ogre had trouble with opposing Kyogres played well. They had trouble with Mawile just being able to whip Kyogre with a play rough and do a ton of damage. Oko, Rayquaza, stuff like that. And then Groudon with gravity and things like skill swap into Bronzong, you could force keep up the Desolate Land. So, they have rain on the field. You skill swap your own Groudon, you get Desolate Land up, the rain is gone, they can't touch you, and then Groudon kills everything with like gravity, hypnosis, precipice blades, all this kinds of stuff. And so, as you can see, now dual primals was becoming super popular. It was kind of a team that did really well against Ray Ogre. It did solid against Big Six, and Big Six was kind of starting to fall out of favor. It was still good, but the meta was changing a lot. And once again, this is about 6, 7, 8 months into the format. And then right around the World Championships time, after an entire year, Big Six pretty much came back in a big way, pretty much known as Big B. And what it was they replaced the Talonflame on the team with a Bronzong. It seems like such a simple, easy kind of change, but it was really, really a big deal because Bronzong, and by the way, the Big Six teams were running things like max speed Groudons almost all the time, just trying to sweep everything. But then with the Big B, they got bulkier. They turned into a bulkier, slower Xerneas, a bulkier, slower Groudon. And then it was like heat-proof Bronzong with gravity and hypnosis. So it would gravity, it wouldn't get in the way of its own levitate because it didn't have it. It would allow Groudon to, once again, drop huge Precipice Blades under gravity into the enemy team, drop Hypnosises. It would let Smeargle hit Dark Voids more accurately with gravity, all this kind of stuff. And then Salamence and Kangaskhan were just amazing support and damage dealers back then too. So now this Big B kind of, you know, team was doing super well in the meta. It was beating everything. And then I'll try to keep it short, but that's when Wolf's big meta call, his very famous World Championship winning team came in, and it's a Kyogre team. Nothing we haven't seen before. It's a Kyogre team with Gengar. Once again, nothing we haven't seen before, but he pretty much changed it up with Lightning Rod to support Kyogre. He had Intimidate, Eject Button, Hitmontop to come in. He had things like Wide Guard to protect from Precipice Blades, all this kinds of stuff. He had Taunt on the Gengar to shut down the Zern and the Smeargle. It was kind of like a mix of both Crobat and Gengar in one mon. I'm trapping them, but I'm also going to taunt the Smeargle or taunt the Xerneas. I can Sludge Bomb the Xerneas for a lot of damage. And yeah, pretty much Wolf's meta call was really good into all of these things. But look at this development. I just want to try and show you guys that metas evolve over such a huge span of time. And then even after that, people started countering Wolf's team. It's an endless development of meta games, and it can last for so long, and it's so cool. And unfortunately, we don't get to see this, but that isn't really the hugest problem. I think the biggest problem is with that comment I showed you guys earlier, where players think the meta is solved, it's over, I want to move on to the next one. We should move on to the next one because the metagame is solved, and that is absolutely not true. Some proposed fixes of how I think that TPCI could handle the formats a little bit better. Now, I want to give you guys a disclaimer that we are in a global pandemic. Obviously, TPCI can't handle everything perfectly. We have to have some leniency. We have to know that they are trying, and that this is a very hard and trying time to really get completely right. So all respect to them for trying. These are just some ways that I think we can make it a little bit better. So my first thing is slightly longer series, maybe 4 to 6 months long. We have had Sword and Shield be out for about a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half, but we've had series be 2 months max, sometimes 1 month, and then, 3 months max. We've had a few be 3 months. But I think that somewhere in the 4 to 6 month range for a series would be enough time for the meta to develop a little bit more. Once again, I think a meta takes even longer than a year to develop. It could develop forever in a way, in my opinion. But I think that 4 months would be a sweet spot. We'd have 3 formats a year. I think that that sounds like a good round number. And then this was the biggest thing that kind of sparked the huge controversy from today was we shouldn't be revisiting old series or formats, because that just begs the question as to why didn't we play Series 7 for 6 months so that the meta could fully develop, so that we could all be practicing the same format for a long time, instead of just sticking another series in the middle there, and then we leave that format, Series 8 is what I'm talking about, going right back into Series 7. I think that is, like, honestly kind of a slap in the face that they either couldn't think of a new format, or that they're kind of scrambling to come up with some things. I really don't like this, and I think that that is can be fixed by having the series be longer. Imagine the start of Sword and Shield. We had Series 1 last 4 months, and then it was like Series 3 for 4 months, and then it was Series 5 for 4 months. That's already an entire year. And then after that, how about we have Series 7 for 4 months? We would still be in that series right about now. I think it would be almost over. I can't do the exact timeline math in my head. But so there's Series 7, boom. We've had these formats for a long time. They've been developed, they've been fleshed to an extent. And then the new series starts for another 4 months. And that would be, we could even have it be Series 8 right now, 1 restricted for 4 months. And then the series after that could be 2 restricted, boom. And it's like, look how much time we've elapsed over the lifespan of Sword and Shield. And these formats have been longer. And I think that would be way, way better. We wouldn't have to revisit old formats. And we wouldn't have to really make these like weird kind of whack, pardon my French, but like half-assed formats such as Series 6. I know a lot of people like Series 6, but just banning the top 10 Pokemon, I didn't like it. I thought the meta was really bad, personally. But that's just like opinions, right? But that's like a lazy format. There wasn't some big thought process put into like how this is going to affect the meta. It's like, just ban the top 10. Like, we'll see how it goes. This one is like, oh, we've done 2 restricteds for a while. Let's do 1. Let's see how that goes. And I feel like these formats are not very good. I feel like they're just like, we need a new idea. Oh, crap. The 2-month timer's coming up. We need a new idea. Let's go. So I think because they've been pushing out so many random formats that they felt like they needed to revisit one. And I think that that is a huge problem. We should not be revisiting formats because it's going to cause the same drama that came up today as to why didn't we have Series 7 just be longer. And I think that's a big problem. But then I think if the formats lasted longer, I think this would be huge. Players' Cups in the entirety of the tournament should be held in the same format. The best of 1 online qualifier should be the same format as the top 256 bracket, and then that should also be the same format as the Players' Cup top 16 finals. The entire Players' Cup, you would really feel feeling of like development and growth if the entire format was the same. You would actually get to see the format kind of grow more and more and more. But now it's like, oh, we've been playing Series 7 for a while, time for the best of 1. And then the bracket comes and it's just like, oh, new format. I wonder what everyone's going to bring. Who's going to make that big cheesy call that no one's thinking about? Ooh, it's like, there we go. And then like the finals, a new format. I think that this new format changing in the middle of Players' Cup is very bad and kind of detrimental to the tournament integrity. I think if every Players' Cup was the same format the entire time, I think it would be much, much, much better for our scene competitively, for sure. So guys, I hope this talk about all the rotating formats was beneficial to you guys. I hope that I did a good job at explaining really the negative aspect it can have on the newer players when they get thrown into the real life circuit and it's not like they thought and they might not enjoy it anymore. I hope that you guys kind of get a better understanding that metas can and will evolve over a long period of time. And with these shorter formats, we don't really see them, developing like they should. And then also that in those longer formats, players are going to feel a little bit more rewarded and proud of their achievements and growth in the format instead of it just getting cut short. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Shout out to everybody here on Twitch. If you guys want to be here live in the chat, hang out with me, check out the Twitch. It's as simple as that. But I know not everybody's a Twitch fella. So just like and comment on this video and subscribe to the channel. I ain't asking for too much. But guys, I appreciate you guys. And I will see you guys next time. Peace, everybody.